Hey, it's Bobby Bones with some exciting news. Open booking is here for the Top Shelf Country Cruise, setting sail February 2026 aboard the luxurious Celebrity Reflection. Spots are filling up fast, so book your stateroom today or sign up to become a lineup insider to receive the final lineup 48 hours prior to the public. Don't miss your chance to make February 2026 unforgettable. Visit TopShelfCountryCruise.com. That's TopShelfCountryCruise.com.
You know, some people say that Odoo business management software is like fertilizer, the way it promotes growth and all. But other people say Odoo is like a magic beanstalk because it grows with your company and is also magically affordable. And there's some people who would even say Odoo's individual software programs come together to build the perfect suite like building blocks. Well, Odoo is all of these things. Fertilizer, magic beanstalk, building blocks for business. So sign up now at odoo.com. ODOO.com.
I just didn't think the show was going to get so dark.
Really? I thought it was kind of dark from the beginning.
Yeah, to me, the vibe was always going to be like the aftermath of Endgame, right?
Yeah, okay, but like, what's it leading up to? House of M? They're not going to do House of M. That's just X-Men. Oh, hey, Noah. Hey, do you think WandaVision is leading up to House of M?
What? Why are we whispering? I told Eli that today's episode is on Buster Keaton, so he's doing his before episode shenanigans silently.
Oh,
that's what that is. I thought he was having a seizure. What?
Yeah. I mean, hey, no, he knows it's an audio medium, right? Nobody can see him doing that.
Well, I honestly have no idea what he does and doesn't know at this point, bro.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Remember when he told our waitress that he would write a sketch where she would win $1 million?
I do. That was weird. Yeah, like he thought he could actually do it.
I mean, he did write my penis off my body as part of the show. Well, that's true. He did. Yeah.
Okay, so, do we just let him finish, or what? I'm not sure.
I mean, I figure the music will kick in as soon as we get to a punchline.
Yeah, probably.
I miss my penis.
There it is.
Go ahead. Thanks, Heath. Thank you for that.
I do, though, like for real.
Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts. Because this is the internet, and that's how it works now. I'm Cecil, and I'll be your food delivery guy tonight. But not only people who ordered it. First up, a guy who opens the door to a Cheech-level cloud of smoke, and a dude who opens the door in his underwear. Noah and Tom.
Cheech. Fucking lightweight. I opened the door to a Chong level of smoke, sir.
All right, that's fair.
Cecil, it says right on the order that they recommend the tip. That's what it says.
Okay, all right.
On the order.
Also joining us tonight.
15% to give him, damn it.
What is 15% times zero? Anyway, also joining us tonight, a guy who shouts very specific delivery instructions from his mail slot, and a guy whose food the line cook definitely tipped already, Keith and Eli.
Are you kidding me with the amount Heath orders? At this point, the kitchen tipped him.
No, you jumped on
Which
Heath's.
one was about me? Am I the...
You're the mail slot guy.
Because I do
You're
both
the mail
those
slot
things,
guy.
for sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
If I'm super stoned, I'm doing weird stuff through the mail slot because I can't talk to the guy.
So, delivery driver is just a gig job, like podcasting. This isn't my passion. I really love audio and video editing and higher ed and getting passed over for a promotion. I don't want to talk about it. It's okay. But anyway, if you would like to learn how to tip your gig workers, be sure to stick around till the end of the show. And with that out of the way, Tom, tell us what person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event will we be talking about today?
Today, we will be talking about Buster Keaton, Cecil.
Ooh, okay, so Noah, you are ready to tiptoe very carefully around our fatty Arbuckle-shaped landmine, I guess, huh?
Yeah, well, luckily for me, it's a very large landmine.
Yeah.
Should be easy to see him coming.
Okay, so Noah, tell us about Buster Keaton.
Okay, so Buster Keaton was the greatest silent era film star, bar none.
Well, I mean, there were several who would have disagreed at the time, but they kept quiet about it.
Oh,
You're damn right they did. Sure, Harold Lloyd was great and Charlie What's-His-Name was fine, but the timeless nature of Keaton's movies
Charlie, what's his name?
is unrivaled in the history of film. Everybody already knows about him. God damn it, I'm not doing a fucking essay on him. And he wasn't just a brilliant physical comedian. Keaton is also widely recognized for his genius as a director. Roger Ebert called him, quote, the best actor-director in the history of the movies, end quote. And in 1996, Entertainment Weekly ranked him the 7th greatest director of all time, with a margin of error of 6. Word warning. He's also the closest thing I have to a personal hero, and he's the only celebrity whose grave I've ever visited.
Jesus.
Yeah, this is going to be a gushing fanboy episode throughout.
We've all written gushing fanboy essays, Noah. I wrote one about the Battle of Agincourt. Tom wrote about the Everleigh Club. Keith wrote about con men. And Eli did one about a poop in a jar. So I think we're all...
Okay. You know who never lets you down, Cecil? A literal jar of human shit.
Okay.
A literal jar of human
This
shit.
is gushing.
So Joseph Frank Keaton was born to a vaudeville family in Kansas in 1895, and legend has it that on the night of his birth, a tornado swept through town and destroyed the house he'd been born in earlier that day. Of course, that didn't actually happen, and we can just verify that because we know his birthday. But it's a story Buster told throughout his life, so I figured I'd add it in here. And for the record, I'm going to be using legend has it to insert a lot of known bullshit into this essay.
Legend has it.
No.
I just like the idea of young Buster Keaton. Like the tornado hits the house, it comes crashing down, and baby Buster Keaton's just standing there while an open window falls around him perfectly.
Oh, dude, in the most extreme version of the story, he actually is lifted up by the tornado and thrown, but he's fine. Now, he was
In that.
He's in the tornado and he's on the front of a train as it's spinning him around. Yeah.
No, he was originally named after his dad. He was actually Joseph Keaton VI, but legend has it that he got his nickname Buster from none other than Harry Houdini. His dad owned a traveling show with Houdini called the Mohawk Indian Medicine Company, and yes, they sold bullshit medicine after the show. So at some point while they're traveling, an 18-month-old Joey comes stumbling his way down a flight of stairs, stands up at the end, shakes it off, and goes about his business. After seeing that, Houdini is said to have remarked, "Why, he's a regular Buster." And while we can't say for certain that's bullshit because they don't keep record of toddlers falling downstairs the way they do with weather, or
Well, they do
didn't
at the
back
hospital.
then.
No,
Yeah,
they
but
do
not-
that
not
at the
in-
hospitals.
Not in 1895, they didn't.
Tyreek Hill's kids, there's a record of that.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Jesus.
But the fact that the more often Buster told the story, the more famous the person who gave him that nickname got, that's a strong indicator that maybe this has got some bullshit potential.
Still, good old days when your reaction to a toddler falling down a flight of stairs was to give him a nickname, right?
Oh, so cute. Yeah. Oh, that's our kid. Starry. Yeah, he just stares and stares now. Yeah, never says a word. Best baby ever.
Yeah, great
Starry.
stone face. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so one more bullshit story, and then I'll move on to stuff that actually happened.
Boo.
During their travels, Buster Keaton...
Eli, you want some more accuracy in the stories? Is that what you're booing about?
No, I want less accuracy. I'm voting against
exactly.
the accuracy.
Yeah, exactly. He's booing the latter half of that intro, I think. So during their travels, Buster's family sometimes stayed with a farmer in Michigan, and we're talking 1905 or so, which means that you're shitting in an outhouse. But the farmer's outhouse was convenient to the road. It's in the middle of nowhere, so people were constantly showing up and using his outhouse without permission. The farmer would complain about how people would leave a mess and use up all his toilet paper, so little Buster, who had a reputation as both a tinkerer and a prankster, devised a system to fix the problem. Legend has it that he set up a series of pulleys such that the farmer, if he ever noticed somebody going into his outhouse, could pull the chain a couple of seconds later, and then all four walls would collapse.
You really had to bust out the blueprints in the days before the whoopee cushion, man. What the fuck?
The falling wall thing is pretty good, but I was hoping he'd make a trap door open in the ceiling of the outhouse, and you'd get the shit dropped on your head at that point, right?
Oh, okay.
It would seem magical. You'd be like, "Wow, I could, it went,
Yeah.
how did it?"
Like a
It's
video
like a
game
portal.
universe.
What's going on?
Yeah. All right, so Buster's career as an entertainer began at the age of 3.
And that is not one of the according to legend thing. That's a for realsies thing. His parents were vaudeville comedians that did a slapstick act. So as soon as he was big enough to fall over, they incorporated him into the show. And you know how slapstick isn't funny when it's a 3-year-old?
I do not know that. That's ridiculous.
Hey, bro, neither did 1898. So the crux of the act is that his parents would put little handles on Buster. They would sew little suitcase handles onto his outfits, and then his dad would get frustrated with the kid, and then he would pick him up by the handle and chuck him off stage into a sheet that would, like, more or less harmlessly catch
that's
him.
objectively funny then and now. I don't understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that they added handles. They were like, okay, we're throwing him off stage pretty good now, but how can we improve
we gotta check
the leverage?
You get a little more torque if we had a handle.
Also, this is objectively better than American handles your luggage, too. Like, way better.
All right, so you might be thinking to yourself, who the fuck wants to watch a kid get tossed dangerously around and knocked over and shit?
Keith.
It's
my hands up too. I'm just saying. Like,
I wrote it before he made that confession, but it turns out, no, it was Heath and everyone else alive at that time, in fact.
Make America great again.
Oh, no.
All right, so the abuse that his parents were willing to put him through became the chief selling point for their act. Pretty soon, his parents were billing Buster as the little boy who can't be damaged.
Okay, no, that's not. No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. And the act itself as the roughest act that was ever in the history of the stage.
Like,
now on Pornhub. Actually.
Yeah, I was going to say that's like a glory hole disclaimer. Like, what is happening here?
All right, but the long and short of it, so I wrote that before you made the glory hole
it's true.
comment.
Yeah, it's fair,
but the
fair.
long and short of it, though, is that Buster grew up knowing how to take a fall, and it turned out that was going to help him out both professionally and personally.
Yeah, join us for Child Abuse, the musical. Or as it would later be called, the Mickey Mouse Club show.
Or choir practice for Catholic kids.
Same thing.
Hashtag free Britney.
That was for you, Eli. That joke was for you, buddy.
Thank you. That essay is in our graveyard.
All right, so now if you're thinking to yourself, hold on, wouldn't an act like that lead to allegations of child abuse and arrest? Well, the answer to that one's yes. From time to time it did, but since Buster could always show the cops that he wasn't actually hurt very often, they kept letting his dad do it. Of course, the physical abuse wasn't the only problem with the lifestyle. There was also the issue of Buster not going to school, which it turned out was illegal.
No, not if you could pretend it's virtual.
Right, no,
Same
exactly. They hadn't figured that out yet. So eventually the state of New York forced him to go to school, though by all accounts he just attended for like part of a day whenever they'd make a fuss about it. As a result, he didn't learn to read and write until late in his childhood. Of course, to be fair, the falling down practice would prove much more important to his career.
Yeah, and not learning to read or write definitely helped move him towards the I'll probably be fine career path he was headed down. So it's a mutual thing.
Okay, but I think after making his early fame falling down a flight of stairs, perhaps reading and writing were always going to be like aspirational goals, you know? Like,
Oh, shit.
All right, so by the time he was 18, Buster was a rising star in the vaudeville world. But that meant that pretty soon the son was upstaging the father, who was, surprise, surprise, a violent drunk.
Huh.
Now, eventually, he decided that his dad's alcoholism was holding him back. So at the age of 21, Buster and his mother moved to New York from wherever the hell they were at that point, and they revamped their act to work without him.
See, people, this is why you don't bring your work home with you, okay? This is why you gotta leave it there.
He's like, Mom, I'm going to need you to, in an alcoholic rage, throw me into the sheet. Can you just toss
Crofts
me?
is like, boo! She doesn't seem motivated by alcoholic rage. Not funny. Boo! Cancel culture gone too far.
All right, so after a brief and uneventful stint in World War I,
wait, excuse me. An uneventful stint in World War I?
I mean, this is a guy who grew up being thrown around a stage by his dad. It was like uneventful for him.
Fine.
He's in the trenches, the bombs go off. It's like, meh. You should have
He's
met my dad.
He's got to go over the wall. They just grab the handle and throw him. Get him over there.
Guys, mustard gas. I need a sheet. I need a sheet for the mustard gas.
He's in no manhandle land. That's where he's
Oh, very good. Very good. I'll allow it.
All right. So,
Okay, so go on. After his uneventful war.
Yeah, so after the uneventful war, Buster winds up meeting a man who is going to change his life. The year is 1917, and Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle was one of the biggest names in the burgeoning medium of film.
Ixnay on the
We'll get there. We'll get there. He was also one of the biggest people in that burgeoning medium. The dude weighed 13 pounds at birth. That's damn near twice the average, and didn't get thinner as he got older. But despite his size, he was a remarkably agile guy, and it made him really popular first in vaudeville and then as one of Hollywood's first superstars. Now, eventually, Fatty Arbuckle would go on to be accused of rape and manslaughter. He'd fuck up a whole Citation Needed episode, and he would become industry poison. And I should point out that every history I've ever read seems pretty sure he wasn't guilty, but all the histories I've read were also written pre-Me Too, so we don't know what happened. What we do know is that Fatty was ultimately acquitted, along with a prodigious apology by the jury for all the shit he went through along the way. So the feeling at the time was certainly that it was a false accusation.
We have a pretty good idea of what happened, though, I would say. We could guess.
Well, okay, but given what we know about Hollywood, like, I don't know if that tells us much.
Yeah, right.
If we buried that essay in a pet cemetery, would it come back as a good version of itself, you think?
Jean Benet.
No,
absolutely not.
No,
It's a double
not.
Pet Cemetery version.
Right, yes. Well before all of that, in 1917, Fatty was a meal ticket for Buster. At the time that they met, Arbuckle was under contract with Joseph M. Schenck, who was one of the most influential producers in the early film industry. And because of their shared past in vaudeville, the first time Buster and Fatty met, Fatty was like, "Hey, man, you want to do this a scene with me in this film I'm making?" And they did. And it's goddamn hilarious. It's more or less improvised, and it's this bit where Buster's buying molasses from Fatty. You can find it on YouTube. The movie is called Butcher Boy. Buster's in it for 3.5 minutes, and in that 3.5 minutes, you can immediately tell that this dude is a star who absolutely understands the medium.
Okay, and also Butcher Boy, the silent film, absolutely not to be confused with the 1997 film of the same name, about an abused young boy with an alcoholic father. You know what? Totally fine and confusing.
Yeah.
Actually, it's
Yeah,
fine.
right.
Just mute
Given
the
what we
second
know
one.
of Fatty now, I mean, it's
fine.
less depressing too. Now, in all, Buster would go on to appear in 14 of Arbuckle's shorts, and the two became close friends. But their professional collaboration ended in 1921, which is when the aforementioned rape accusation broke in the news. Now, at that point, Buster was out a comedy partner, and Fatty's boss was out a comedy star. So Schenck gave Buster his own production unit, Buster Keaton Productions, and set him to work. This would set off one of the most exceptional decades in the career of any director in the history of film.
Okay, so while I pour another layer of concrete over that Fatty Arbuckle essay, we'll let you wait that out with a little apropos of nothing.
There he is, Buster Keaton.
Oh, hey, Fatty.
How's it going, Buster? You ready to make another movie?
Yeah, about that. I just
Hear me
had,
out. In this one,
okay.
Fatty, he gets a job, right? He gets a job in a cream pie factory.
Yeah, sorry, Fatty. It's just one little
So
thing.
wait, now hear this.
Okay,
He
go
works
ahead.
way up in the crust section. But one day, he sees this dame, right? She works down in the cream section, and he meets her by falling off the railing onto her.
Okay, given the current climate, that doesn't seem like a great idea.
But then Fatty,
for the plot.
Fatty, he's like, "Oh no, I squished her right in the cream." So he runs around getting all his friends to say that she was already creamy when he found her like that.
I feel like this isn't about the movie.
But he's still got cream on his hands, see? Cream that never comes off, no matter how hard he scrubs, no matter how often. He sees cream wherever he goes. It follows him.
Uncomfortable. I'm very
And then,
uncomfortable.
boom, he hits his head on a door. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do my own thing. Probably just pass.
All right, Buster, but the only movie you're going to be able to make is dropping a house on yourself and trying to stay alive. So, what do you say? Want to join me in The Killer Cream Pie?
I think I'm gonna go with the house thing.
Okay, then. I murdered a lady.
Yep, got it.
Okay, audience, we are returning. I want you to look very closely into this pen I took from Tommy Lee Jones in Men in Black. There we go. Fatty who? Anyway, Noah, you were talking about Buster Keaton, right? It was Buster
completely
Keaton.
different fucking guy. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, so considering when we're recording this, I should start by reminding people that movie theaters were these big rooms we used to sit in. Remember? We would all sit in, we would watch superheroes make things explode. It was loud. But back at the dawn of cinema, it was a much different experience. So consider what they were replacing, right? By and large, this was vaudeville theaters. Vaudeville gets its name from a French theatrical style, but it wound up being almost nothing like that ultimately. But it was like this very generic general audience variety show stuff, often heavy on physical comedy, like juggling, acrobatics, a lot of music. But there would also be poem recitals, one-act plays, magicians, lecturers, strongmen, dancers. And they would all do these short acts so that if you didn't like what you were watching at the moment, you just had to wait a few minutes for something different.
Boo, throw a baby. Poetry's dumb. Throw a baby.
Yeah, today we call that TikTok, everybody. TikTok.
Yeah, right. No, late 19th century TikTok. Exactly. So when movie theaters first started to become hours-long destinations, they kind of mimicked the vaudeville variety show style to a certain degree. You didn't go to see a 2-hour movie. Rather, you went to see a feature film that was going to be like 45 to 60 minutes or so. But that would be preceded by several shorter films like newsreels, action serials, cartoons, and most notably for this story, comedy shorts. And generally speaking, you could watch all of that quicker than you could watch fucking Patty Jenkins shit the bed with Wonder Woman 84.
Oh, if only Wonder Woman 84 had been about Wonder Woman having bad Thai food and shitting the bed, no illusion. Such a better movie.
Right. Okay, so Buster got to start doing these comedy shorts, which were often the highlight of a night at the theater, right? And when you watch the features of the time, you'll see why. Dramatic stuff didn't work nearly as well under the constraints of silent film, especially early. And dramatic actors took a while to figure out how to make the transition from the stage. You get a lot of these like overlarge flourishes, clearly designed to show emotion to somebody 24 rows back, but it's a fucking close-up, right? So as often as not, the feature was just a way to make going to watch Buster Keaton get kicked in the nuts sound like it was an intellectual pursuit.
Welcome back to America's funniest silent video.
Right, but eventually we realized it's all about the porn and not the articles. So now we have the pinnacle of Buster Keaton's art form. Jackass. Yeah.
Cecil, tell Heath I'm not speaking to him anymore. Now,
I'll call him and tell him that later on the phone. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, send him a text. All right.
I would watch Buster Keaton beating the shit out of Johnny Knoxville with boards somehow.
That'd be so good. Now, if you've never seen a Buster Keaton short, I strongly recommend you correct that. You can find most of his stuff for free on YouTube, and even though it's like nearly 100 years old or over 100 years old in some instances, the comedy by and large stands up. Personally, I'd recommend you start with 1 Week, which is over 100 years old, and his first short that he starred in. Also, The Electric House, Neighbors, or The Balloonatic, all great flicks. Now, what you'll notice immediately is the racist portrayal of Native Americans if you start with Balloonatic. The next thing you're going to notice is that Buster didn't just have a great mind for comedy and a great eye for cinematography. He was also insanely athletic and talented. His movies are just chock full of impressive and often extremely dangerous stunt work and gags that include crazy levels of coordination and physical dexterity. There is no modern parallel to the shit that he did, but the closest we've ever been in my lifetime, I would say, was like Jackie Chan in his heyday.
Glimpse into the future with the new short, The Electric House, and catch Buster Keaton in his 2 new comic shorts, Pooping Indoors and The Wife Who Wore Pants.
Oh, it's so funny that the ideas they had of what an electrified house would be.
Yeah.
But although I will say, though, fucking Buster trying to go down the up escalator in that house is still one of the funniest things in the history of motion. So good. He broke his leg doing that. Oh, anyway. So eventually, the popularity of his shorts, coupled with the success of feature films by Charlie Chaplin, Keaton quickly moved on to multi-reel flicks. And while the difference between the modern audience expectations and the film techniques of the day are way more apparent in these longer movies, several of his features are still really accessible, even if you're not a big fan of old movies. Stuff like The Navigator, Sherlock Jr., and Steamboat Bill Jr. will crack up a modern audience from time to time. And The General, which many people consider to be his magnum opus, it's not. Steamboat Bill Jr. is better. Was rated. So is Sherlock Jr. actually. Yeah, thank you. I like to get controversial from time to time on this show.
Some guy's waddling, caning his way over to his record player where he listens to our podcast. You've gone too far. You've gone too far.
Smashing a wax cylinder with a giant sledgehammer.
But anyway, but The General was rated by the American Film Institute among the 20 greatest movies ever made.
Yeah, that being said, the American Film Institute says the greatest movie ever made is Citizen Kane.
Oh,
which
God.
is not, it's
Oh.
terrible. It's
Unwatchable.
unwatchable.
It is unwatchable.
Keith,
yeah.
they throw 0 babies in that one, so I could see why you couldn't get into it. I get why.
There's so whatever. That's not.
Okay, Citizen
fine.
Kane, that's a movie that tries to make you feel bad when rich people feel sad. It's not getting a lot of traction in 2021.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's not.
No,
what does everybody
not got a lot
like
of
about
play.
Citizen Kane? It's like it had new techniques.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
It's
it, yeah.
important from a technical perspective, but it absolutely does
I mean,
not
you could
hold
just
up.
use those techniques and make a good movie around it, right? Like
Philistines.
They did.
That's what
Eventually.
Buster
They
Keaton
did.
did.
Eventually. Yeah, they made
Yeah,
other good
exactly.
movies with those techniques. Sure.
Philistines.
So,
They just didn't do it at the same time.
Birth
It's
of
one
an
or the
Nation
other.
had a
You
bunch
can
of
only-
great new techniques
Yeah.
too.
Sure.
yeah, it
Yeah,
did.
you can-
It did. And they managed to leave that one off. Okay, but so at the time of its release, though, The General wasn't exactly hailed as the masterpiece that we now recognize it to be. First of all, the movie takes place during the Civil War, and Buster's heroic character is fighting for the South. Now, he said that was because otherwise he'd be picking on the loser, but so fucking what?
I think that's totally allowed when the losers are fucking losers.
Right,
But
exactly,
that's fine.
exactly,
It's-
right.
what's
Still,
the difficulty?
that was not the problem at the time, though. The big issue in 1926 was that it was just too heavy for a comedy, and also it made jokes about soldiers dying. Now, those gags are nowhere near problematic by today's sensibilities, but at the time it was very much taboo.
Come on, the dead Confederate bodies were landing on sheets off stage. I mean, come on now.
If it's good enough for a 3-year-old. All right, so The General was also crazy expensive to film. The movie's most famous scene involves a wooden bridge collapsing under the weight of a train, and they used a
Jesus.
real train for that scene. They didn't use a miniature.
What?
Yeah, no, there's people moving around in the foreground and everything. So,
Amazing.
yeah, and what's more, it was a period piece, so they used this old ass train. So they built an entire bridge just so they could blow up an antique train. But that was not the most expensive aspect of the movie. Buster insisted on using the type of train that they would have had back in the 1860s, which meant that his train was chucking out burning embers the whole time.
What?
Yeah.
What is happening?
Wait,
Right. So
old trains were just throwing a hot shit into forests all the time?
yeah. They ran on wood and shit.
How do
at
we
the time.
still
So-
have forests? Weren't those trains going for a while?
Yeah. They knew how to handle it a little better back in the day. Not so much here, because one of those embers caught the forest that they were in on fire.
There it is.
And his production company
Okay.
ended up on the hook for the putting that shit out bill.
Yeah, well, Oregon needs to Swiffer up those leaves. That's their fault, right?
It's on them. Yeah.
Mostly.
And the real unanswered question is, what gender was the train? Like, if they're going to do the reveal, just I don't even.
All right. So at the time, United Artists was distributing his movies. And after The General's middling box office return, they put Buster on a leash. So they gave him a full-time production manager who monitored his expenses.
Yeah, and he was furious when he took a look at the first. He's like, "What? No expense line item for forest fires. This is bullshit.
Right?
What? I can't even do my job."
So, well, that's the thing is they vetoed most of his more outlandish ideas. And now he would make 2 more features with UA, which in my opinion actually are his worst and his best films. But by all accounts, he hated making them and he felt creatively stifled by UA's new policies. At the same time, MGM was offering him a fucking Scrooge McDuck vault to sign a deal with them. So in 1928, he signed with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, a decision he would later call the worst one of his life.
Yeah, you can't swim in coins. It just hurts. I've been there. Right,
yeah, exactly.
It's gonna be fun.
You can't dive in, that's for sure. So another decision that
There's
complete.
got to be a bunch of people who have tried that. We're like, that looks so fun. Scrooge Ow!
Ow.
Wow, it's just like a floor.
It's so
like I
hard.
dove into the
No,
floor.
it
isn't
moved
it?
away.
My normal floor is wood, which is demonstrably softer than metal.
Oh. All right. So, but another decision that competed for worst of his life was his first wife. Buster married Natalie Talmadge in 1921, just as his career was starting to take off. Natalie's family was damn near Hollywood royalty. Her sisters, Norma and Constance, were both silent era stars, and honestly, it's obvious why. I challenge anyone alive to watch D.W. Griffith's Intolerance without falling in love with Constance Talmadge. I also challenge anybody to sit through that 3-hour self-pitying piece of shit at all, but that's beside the point. Anyway, point is, the marriage wasn't a happy one. Buster was cheating on her from pretty much the ooh sound in I Do, and she reportedly got back at him by spending about 1/3 of his salary per month on her wardrobe.
Oh, Natty Arbuckle. I like that.
He's just like, oh, not sure why my marriage is failing. Anyway, you want to suck my dick or what? Oh, yeah. Hey, look, of course it's an open bar. It's a wedding reception. God, my mother-in-law, you really have a low opinion of
Jesus Christ. Yeah, actually real close. Yeah, he's my hero professionally, people, professionally. So by 1926, Buster and his wife were sleeping in separate bedrooms.
Well, yeah, because his bedroom was already full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No room at the
There's
end.
nothing wrong with separate bedrooms. It's just more comfortable for people. Have your own bed,
Keith
obviously.
might be Amish.
Chiming in.
All right, so but at the same time that his personal life's falling apart, critics are panning his latest film, despite it being legitimately one of the greatest movies ever made. In fact, if you go by AFI's list, it was the greatest movie ever made at the time because the other 17 that rank above it hadn't been made yet. So Keaton decides to try his hand at alcoholism, and it turns out he was good.
Nice.
He
He's throwing
excelled.
himself off the stage like Ed Norton beating himself.
Okay, you know what? Dad had a point. This is fun. I am enjoying this.
So it was at this point that he did a couple of his most dangerous and most famous stunts. He made a career out of hurting himself, of course, up to and including breaking his neck during a scene in Sherlock Jr. that made the final cut.
Ooh.
It's in the movie. You can watch him break his neck. But if you've only ever seen Buster Keaton once in your life, the clip you will have seen is his most famous and most dangerous stunt. It comes from the hurricane scene in Steamboat Bill Jr. It's the classic gag on a monumental scale where he runs out of the house and then the facade of a 2-story house falls away, but he emerges unscathed because he's standing exactly where the open attic window is. Now, this is a stunt, the way that they did it at the time, where he misses his mark by more than 6 inches in any direction, and he has like a couple of seconds to run to it, he would get crushed. He would almost certainly die.
Jesus.
So later on in interviews, they'd ask, hey, were you scared when you did this? And he would say, I was blackout drunk. I have no idea if I was scared or not.
Oh, that's how Heath does the stunts for our podcast, everybody.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, actually.
I drink.
Who the fuck signed off on this stunt? Like, oh, yeah, Buster. Oh, he's a star, cash cow, huge talent, major asset. Oh, yeah, tomorrow we're going to drop a house on him, see if he lives. I don't know.
Well, so that was the thing, though, right? So as soon as he signed with MGM, he wasn't allowed to do dangerous shit like that anymore.
Got to sign with MGM.
The studio was determined to protect their investment.
No, right? The other guys don't care about you, Buster.
Yes. It's funnier when you just fall, though. But the studio was determined to protect their investment, so they used stuntmen for all the tough stuff. And he used to say, hey, man, stuntmen don't get laughs, right? That was his entire bit. So before long, the booze and the depression was showing up in his work. The first couple of movies he made with MGM were fine, I guess, but then they put him on a breakneck schedule, and he churned that shit. He started in like 11 movies between March of 1930 and February of 1933.
Just churning them out. And it was then that he took up his stage name, Nicolas Cage.
Harry Houdini gave him that name, actually. So these movies obviously took us 3 months to write, film, and edit, that kind of feel to them. And that being said, though, their low production cost and fast turnaround made them some of the most financially successful movies that he ever made.
Probably better than the 7 Police Academy movies they made over 10 years, too. I imagine.
Almost certainly, yeah. So in 1932, Natalie left him, taking with her his 2 sons and, legend has it, his entire fortune. A year after that, he'd starred his final feature, a movie with Jimmy Durante called What? No Beer, which is about Tom's origin story, I assume.
There's always been beer. It's always.
Well, I don't know. I've never seen it, and by all accounts, neither did Buster. Despite the movie's success, he hated everything about it, and with his MGM contract thus satisfied, he left Hollywood altogether.
Ooh, an entertainer who left to go do normie stuff. Let me guess, it went awesome.
Yeah, okay. So for the next couple of decades, he bumbled around making educational films, writing gags for other comics, and generally being a really depressing character. But in the late 40s, he found his way onto this new medium of television. So he did a guest spot on a popular CBS variety show, which generated enough interest that CBS offered him his own show in 1950. He ended up hosting a couple of other shows over the next few years. He became a television mainstay through the 50s and 60s. And because of his popularity through those appearances, interest in his old silent films rekindled, and several of them were re-released in theaters. He also racked up a series of endorsement contracts that would make any modern athlete jealous. He was at different times the pitch man for Phillips 66, RCA, Budweiser, Ford, Milky Way, Colgate, Alka-Seltzer, and 7-Up, among others.
Okay. It's like a really dark short story there about an alcoholic, a DUI, a terrible hangover, and then, a really refreshing soda.
Well done. Okay, so Buster died in 1966, 26 years into his third marriage and his first happy one. He's probably the only man in history that had a successful career in vaudeville, silent film, talkies, and television. His comedy is still hilarious 100 years later, and directors still study his use of space and camera movement today. And when they don't, it fucking shows. Later in his life, when interviewers would point out the profound impact that his genius had on the history of film, he would respond with characteristic humility that nobody could be a genius while they were wearing a pork pie hat and slap shoes.
And if you had to summarize what you learned in one sentence, Noah, what would it be?
Buster Keaton is the cannabis of 1920s film stars.
Okay. Are you ready for the quiz?
I was born ready for this one.
All right.
All right, Noah. We learned that Buster Keaton got some pushback about his treatment of the bad guys in the Civil War in that movie he did. Speaking artistically, what's the funniest way for a movie to kill people who support the Confederate flag? D, all of the above.
Yeah, it's going to be D. It's going to be all of the above. Thank you for saving me the trouble.
Correct.
All right, Noah. Buster Keaton, star of silent films, is best remembered for this famous one-liner.
His best one-liner, though, was "You're ashamed of my bacon."
I love that one. It's good shit.
The worst joke
Good
I
shit.
ever wrote.
All right, Noah, what would have been a great stage name for Buster's baby-tossing dad? A, Heave Lobs. B, James Hurl Jones.
Yes, that's great.
C, Yeater Dinklage. That's the best. D,
These are good.
Flinger Bell. Or E, just Chuck.
Eli, that's the best punning you have
Dinklage was so
ever
good.
done in your goddamn life, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to go C, Yeater Dinklage.
It has to be that one.
That's correct. Yes.
Noah, you're the winner. I don't know how you're the winner, but you're the winner.
So I would really love to hear a Heath essay. It's been too long.
Oh, sounds
All right.
good. Sounds good. All right. Well, for Noah, Heath, Eli, and Tom, I'm Cecil. Thanking you for hanging out with us today. We'll be back next week, and by then, Heath will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, buy Noah's book on Amazon, Outbreak, A Crisis of Faith, and listen to our other stuff. You know where it is. And if you'd like to help keep this show going, you can make a per-episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod, or leave us a 5-star review everywhere you can. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, check out past episodes, connect with us on social media, or check the show notes, be sure to check out citationpod.com. And remember, folks, there is no Fatty Arbuckle essay. Never existed.
And then, you listening, Charlie Chaplin? Then Fatty is like, what am I going to do with this here champagne bottle?
Sorry, Fatty. I think I'm going to pass.
But you haven't heard the punchline yet.
Is it that you murdered a lady?
Yes.
Okay.